Welcome back to another episode of Positive Vibes from the Valley. I am your host, Gabriel, and you may be thinking this is a little bit of a different intro than you might normally see, and you'd be correct. Today we are out here at Seven Bend State Park, and we're here because today's episode is on environmental wellness. Now, when I was thinking about a guest for environmental wellness, one person came to mind, and that is Ranger Tom Stevens. And I've known Ranger Tom for a couple years now, and I've done a few events with him, and we've come to know each other. And when I thought about a guest that I'd like to have for environmental wellness, I couldn't think of anyone better than Ranger Tom. So today we're going to sit down, and he's going to tell me a little bit about what being environmentally well means to him. And I think he has a really cool perspective on this because he works out in this beautiful environment, and he does this for a living. But he gives us some tools and some tips and perspectives where I think the average person could feel like they're being environmentally well. All right, Tom. Well, thank you so much for doing this podcast with me. We've worked together. We were just kind of talking off camera. We've worked together for various other things, but when I had to figure out someone who to do for environmental wellness, I couldn't think of a better person than you. So if you don't mind, just giving a brief description of who you are, what you do, and kind of where we're at right now.
Sure. First, I do want to thank you. We talked through email that it's an honor knowing that you think highly enough of me and my skill set to talk about environmental wellness or to join you on your podcast. So thank you. My name is Thomas Stevens, and I'm the park manager of Seven Bend State Park. It's one of Virginia state parks, and it's in Woodstock, Virginia, in Shenandoah County. We are a just over 1,000-acre day-use park, so we're only open during daylight hours, and we offer outdoor recreation by way of hiking, biking, picnicking, river access, so fishing, wading, swimming, kayaking, canoeing, tubing, all that.
Yeah, I didn't even
all
know
of
that.
that.
Yeah.
The list goes on for what you can do in the outdoors, but that's who I am, and that's where we are.
We were just joking because I felt like you were on the phone a couple different times as we were setting up, and I was like, you're probably doing a lot more than people think. I said that I think people probably think you're out here strolling and hiking a lot, but it seems like it's even all those activities you name, it's probably a larger operation than I think people give it credit for.
Most definitely, and we do hear it a lot. You tell people what you do for a living. You say I'm a park ranger, and they're like, oh wow, you must have the best job ever. But it's just like any other job.
Yeah.
It has its downfalls, and kind of when I explain that I'm a park manager and what it takes to manage a park, I guess the relationship that I try to draw is that it's like a little town.
Yeah.
Because town managers, not unlike a town, there's always a population in the park. There's always people in the park.
Random people,
right?
Like a transient population every day. That makes it way harder, I feel like.
And there's utilities, there's buildings that all need taken care of. And we have our own public safety, law enforcement rangers. So it's like operating a small town or a business.
Yeah, 1,000 acres is not small.
Right.
That's
about the average size for a Virginia state park too.
Okay.
Some of our state parks are much larger. A few of them are a little smaller, but 1,000 acres is about the average size for a Virginia state park.
And is this a newer park? I think. Did it open more recently than others?
It is, yeah. So we started the build, what we call build out, or the completion of phase 1 of the master plan. Started that construction in 2018. We opened in 2020, soft opening because 2020 was COVID year.
Yeah, we try to forget that.
Yeah, and so we couldn't have this grand, ribbon cutting during the COVID year of 2020, but in 2022 is when we were finally able to get the governor available to help us come cut a ribbon and dedicate the park.
Did the governor come out for?
Correct.
I mean, because the state park's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And I feel like Virginia is known for Virginia should be known for a couple of things. I think Virginia has a really good like public school system in terms of colleges. There's a lot of colleges here, and then we also have a pretty good park system. I think I've been over the U.S. Different places, lived in different states, and some states just don't have as many state parks, or maybe they do, but the state might be so big. But Virginia just you can whatever, like a little triangle that we are. It's cool too because you could go to somewhere like maybe like First Landing in like near Virginia Beach, and then you can come out here in the mountains, or then you could go. It's just like we kind of have our own little ecosystems all in one state. I think that's really cool.
It is, yeah, definitely. That Virginia is blessed with having the ocean and the mountains.
Yeah.
And 43 parks now. They just opened another one in Culpeper.
Wow.
Last weekend. So a great state park system in Virginia. The residents of the Commonwealth should feel very lucky.
Yeah, I agree.
And really feel proud of the state park systems that we have here.
So I just witnessed you kind of doing, like you said, a lot of managerial stuff that I don't think people would think that you do. Does it help to be doing it with a backdrop like this, or do you have to take a moment to go, oh, this is actually really cool,
Oh yeah, definitely. Even with all the I don't want to say negative things about the job, but like I said, with any job, there are the tasks that are less liked than other tasks. But as a park ranger, you are very lucky that while you do have some of those tasks that you might not want to do, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum is your backdrop, is the park itself. Like that's what that's where you work, and this is what you're providing to the public. And there's a large sense of pride that comes with that too, that we are the stewards of this place that tens, hundreds of thousands of people enjoy every year.
Yeah, and I noticed that like I said, when we were getting set up and everything, there was a couple people coming in, and you just took a moment to make sure they were okay, and it was just so natural, and it was almost like not every job has that sort of like welcoming, like, oh, I want to make sure everyone here is taken care of. I don't know how many people you see every day, but every time I'm here, all the rangers that I see are always making sure everyone's good. Anyone needs help reading a map, whatever it might be, and I think I think that's rare in sometimes a profession. And kind of this whole podcast series with 8 dimensions of wellness, we kind of zero in sometimes on one dimension, but inevitably, like, they always sort of blend over. There's occupational wellness, which I feel like this could fit into that. There is spiritual wellness, and being out here could be a spiritual experience for some people. I know we talked about some people are coming out here to spread ashes or things like that. So people really value the serenity of this place, it feels like.
Yeah, the outdoors and parks provide, like you said, there is a lot of spillover into those other categories of wellness.
Social, I forgot about that.
Yeah, social.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Taking a step back to what you said earlier, though, is again, it is something that we stress here when we're getting new rangers in that maybe they haven't been a park ranger before, they're new to the profession.
Yeah.
We do stress the importance of taking pride in where you work and what you provide to the public. And one of our previous park directors for Virginia State Parks had a saying. He said, "No one comes to a park to have a bad time."
I like
and
that.
Even one step further than that, it might be quite the opposite. They might be coming to a park because they're having a bad day. Yeah. And so as a park ranger, you need to take into account that people are here for a reason, and you need to make sure that they do have a good time, and they feel welcomed, and they come back, they leave this place with a positive experience, not a negative one.
I do like that even concept of like figuring out if you're a professional, why people are coming to wherever. I never even think about it that way. If someone's coming to a doctor's office, it's probably because they are sick and they're not well. But to the way you put it, and like, that kind of informs everything you do and kind of how you guys approach people, how you guys help people, and that's very evident. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what I said earlier, I was going to ask you about like what got you here. Like, please explain to me how young Tom, came to this point right now? Like, how'd you get here?
Sure. So it's not a typical journey.
Okay.
I would say. I did grow up in rural West Virginia, so
Okay.
I wasn't an outdoors type of person.
What part?
It's Pendleton County, West Virginia. Pendleton County is kind of known for Smoke Hole or Seneca Rocks.
Okay.
Just a lot of outdoor stuff. There's not a lot there except public lands and
Okay.
things to do outdoors. So that's how I was raised, is in the woods.
Okay.
And I did go to West Virginia University, and I got my bachelor's degree in wildlife and fisheries resource management.
Okay.
So I knew that was my passion. I did get a scholarship for college through the Army, so I had to provide some time to the Army following college. But when I was finished with active duty orders, I knew I wanted to get back into what my passion was, which was the outdoors. But I didn't have a clear path in my mind where that was going to be. So I just applied to every outdoor job that I could think of, or there was if there was an opening, I applied for it.
Okay.
And Virginia State Parks was the first one to call me.
Wow.
And so it's park ranger. Let's give it a shot. And I'm extremely glad that I did take that chance, and it led me to where I am. And that was I've been a park ranger for 10 years now.
Wow.
And definitely there's no going to any other profession.
That's actually, when you break it down that way, it kind of makes perfect sense. Because if you blend the childhood, the college degree, and then your service, it kind of does make a lot of sense
Yeah, it
that you
does.
ended up here, because you kind of do a little bit of all those things, on your day to day. I feel like,
Right.
because you are that managerial stuff. I feel like you probably maybe took from the Army, learning about. From your degree. That's the stuff that I really don't understand. And maybe you could break that down a little bit about what it really takes, because when I think of environmental wellness, I think of preservation, and then also I think of living in as good of a harmony as you can with the environment, because in a sense, like, you have to conquer the environment, as humans, a little bit, because we have to use it to work to our advantage, whether if that's just chopping down a tree for firewood. At some point you're gonna have to conquer the environment in some way, shape, or form. I guess the goal is to be in harmony with it. So, like, what does that look to you like on a micro level, and then like on a macro level? Like, what's your philosophies on that?
Okay, and I think you nailed it, right? It's a balance for sure, and especially as a land manager in a park setting. The definition of a park ranger is a steward of the land in which you're protecting, and a lot does come with that. A lot that people don't typically think of when you think of a balance with the environment, or protecting a land. Like you said, people chop down trees for warmth. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
But if you chop down all the trees,
it's a necessity, and there's a balance to be had. A great example as a land manager, coming from a conservation education, and then now working in the field, is invasive species. Invasive flora in the park. We hear it a lot from guests when they walk by a patch of dead vegetation. Why did you do that? You're harming the environment. Why did you do that? Well, they didn't know that it's an invasive plant.
Yeah.
And we're doing that to better, to provide a better future.
Yeah.
And to get to what we call best, best management practices, or a desired future condition.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of management might be counterintuitive. Even when it comes to something like you said, destroying a vegetation that people may think is pretty, or aesthetically pleasing. You're like, no, this is actually all of our walnut trees are not gonna grow because this beetle or this flower or whatever it might be, or we might actually have to burn some trees to preserve the trees that are like control burns and things like that. When I learned about like forestry management and stuff as like a high schooler, like I said, it was counterintuitive for me. It was like, oh, you telling me that you're actually supposed to burn things to prevent wildfires. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that doesn't make any sense until you start to understand more about the environment.
And to promote growth of certain species too. They need the fire to grow, and so it's weird to think about.
Okay. What would you say for people? Because what I know specifically for our community here in the Shenandoah Valley, what I hear about a lot of people, I'll go to conferences and things like that, and you'll tell people where you're from, and they'll go, "Oh, I love the Shenandoah Valley," and they'll start like talking about it in a way that it's almost you get used to where you're at. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you go to a big city, the people who live there aren't like looking at the bridges and buildings. They're just going about their day, and I think there is sometimes you this is so cheesy, but you got to stop and smell the roses or is that what it is?
Yeah.
And that's what I think. We live here, and I think we should understand that. I feel like,
Most definitely, and a couple of points on that from my perspective. In retrospect, thinking about my childhood, growing up in a place that was just rich with outdoor opportunities, I didn't take advantage of that at all. So it's a great example of, like you said, if you're immersed in a place, you don't truly understand exactly what you have.
Yeah.
Until you don't have it. Not that I'm far away from home now, but growing up, I wish I would have taken more advantage of all of the opportunities where I grew up for outdoor recreation.
Yeah.
And it's the same here. And it's moving into the second point. It's why when we're trying to promote the park, we're actually trying hardest to promote it here in the valley.
Yeah.
Because we still talk to a lot of people that they're like, "Where do you work?" And we tell them 7 Bend State Park, and they're like, "Well, where's that?"
Yeah.
And they've never been to a Virginia State Park, or they've never been to the U.S. Forest Service, and the Shenandoah Valley and Shenandoah County in particular is, just like where I grew up in West Virginia, it is so rich with public lands. There are a ton of public lands in Shenandoah County, not just 7 Bend State Park, but the George Washington Thomas Jefferson National Forest.
Yes.
There is so much public lands here. There's so much to do.
Yeah.
And many of the people that we encounter have never stepped foot in any of it.
I found that as well. I found that the people who frequent the parks are kind of like, it's an insulated community in a sense. Not saying that's the whole population, but like, for people who go to, what's the word, or what's the scenario I'm looking for? It's like, most of the people who go here go to other parks.
Right.
And they got their park passes. That's kind of us. I have 2 big dogs, and when we like to vacation, camping just makes the most sense because you can't bring a German Shepherd to a Holiday Inn or whatever.
Right.
So we enjoy going to parks, whether it's hiking, or whatever it might be, and it's inexpensive, as well, which is. Yeah, I was telling you off camera that I'm one of 6, and I remember that would be our big thing. We would go to Newport News Park, and we would rent a paddle boat or canoe, and that was like Disney World for us. You know what I'm saying? So I just think back to that fondly. But yeah, it is strange that the biggest marketing you have to do is right where the park is located.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to the theme of the podcast, it being environmental wellness. And when it comes to marketing, it's really that what we want to promote to people, to educate people on, is that you have this asset in your back door that benefits you immensely in more ways than you think, because of again, environmental wellness is not just taking care of the environment, but what the environment provides to you, and those other categories of wellness, mental wellness, social wellness, all of those things.
To be honest, I think that what some of the biggest issues, I think mentally and physically, which are both dimensions of wellness, and emotional, but for mental and physical health, this saying is like a lot of times people just need to touch grass, and that's just so true. And I think, I know a lot of people have trouble being in nature sometimes because they, for example, I'm originally from New York, so it took me a while to adjust to just even not being afraid of everything that flies or whatever like that. That's the cool thing about state park. We're not asking you to go forage uncharted land. You know what I'm saying? It's like this is a very curated place, organized place for you to come, and I just think people need to avail themselves and take advantage of it much more than they have. Because I just know for a fact if you're feeling down, there's a couple views that I have from my place in Harrisonburg, and it's just hard to be upset. You know, when you look out and you're like, that sunset is just taking away everything I was mad or upset about. And hopefully I can do some more B-roll of the park and put it up for everyone. But yeah, I think that's one of the things I just think people need to understand is, and that's what I say when I hear people talk about this place. To go, oh, I love it out there. I hiked so and so, and you know, we have passes to this place or whatever. I'm like, oh wow, I don't even go to those places as much as you guys go, and you guys live in Phoenix, whatever it might be. So yeah, that's always been something I pondered on.
Yeah, the comment that you made about just the benefits of just touching grass, right? I think a good indicator of that was COVID year. 2020, Seven Bend State Park. We were just soft opening. We didn't even collect attendance because we do try to keep track of attendance on how many people are visiting the park.
Yeah.
We didn't track that attendance for the first 4 months of 2020, and that year we still had more attendance than 2021 and 2022 because people needed that outlet.
Fiending for some.
People needed that outlet.
Yeah.
So it was great to provide that to folks and to be that outlet.
Now, do you have? You grew up in West Virginia, and I went to a friend's place out in West Virginia. Is it Greenbrier where the satellite is at?
Green Bank.
Or what is it?
Yeah.
Green Bank.
Green Bank is where the observatory is, and
okay, that's what.
Greenbrier is just south of there. It's a resort with a beautiful golf course if you're into golfing. But yeah.
Yeah, I was out there, and I was like kind of shook because it was. I mean, it's a couple hours. It was a couple hours from where I was in Harrisonburg, but I said uncharted territory. Some places in West Virginia, I know they still look uncharted. And I'm like, wow, you don't find that a lot. You know, when you get on a plane, sometimes you see a lot of dead space, and like, I guess we're going more to the West Coast, but you don't see a lot of green, uncharted territory. You see, highways and houses and things like that. But West Virginia is really, it might be just the harshness of the mountains themselves. Like, I feel like it's hard to domesticate a lot of that, but that had to be, I know you said you probably felt like you didn't take advantage of enough, but like just being out there, I know that had to be a unique experience as a kid. Yeah,
it was great. I'm extremely grateful of where I grew up, and even to this day, the house that I grew up in, there's no cell phone service there, which wasn't unheard of growing up in the 90s, but today,
yeah,
it's weird that there's places that don't have cell phone service, and there are places in Virginia that are like that too. Maybe more in West Virginia than Virginia, but I'm extremely grateful to have grown up where I grew up, given the opportunities that I was given.
And what's weird about the cell phone service thing? When I went out there, I immediately lost cell phone service, and there's just like an uneasy panic for some reason. And you just forget, like, we did this for most of human history without this right here. Like, this was not even thought of. And why now am I panicked? Like, I can't function. Not function, but like I'm not going to be okay without it, And that was by the end of the weekend. I'm like, oh, you just forget about it. I wonder how long like that detox period is for being in nature and just forgetting about the cell phones.
I'd like to find out one day.
We don't know yet.
Yeah,
we don't know.
But even now, it's like I couldn't even fathom moving somewhere where there wasn't cell phone service. That's I would like to. I'd like to be that person.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Well, I think it's about harmony. I like being able to, and you tell me if you feel this way. I think when I was younger, we were a lot. I was able to entertain ourselves a lot easier. But I also, now that I think about it, remember being bored a lot. Just bored, and that boredom always creates some cool activity, some cool game that you never thought of. But like a lot of times you're just sitting around and you're bored. And that's the cool thing I think about the cell phones. It's like
when you are bored, it is cool if you can watch a show. Like you can stream something, you can look at something. I think that is cool, but sometimes I find myself when I get my screen report back, I'm like, hold up,
That can't be right.
That can't be right, and you just can't be spending that long. You're not that bored,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like, what are you, rose-colored glasses when you look back and you go,
Yeah.
man, I was such a good time. And I was like, also, I can go look up something now very, immediately, or even think about how quickly we got this scheduled,
Right.
through email. And that even in itself is something I think it's harmony. Like, what is that harmony? What's that balance?
Well, and I think that boredom is also what drove me to a passion for the outdoors, right? Because
Yeah.
whenever I was bored, what am I going to do?
Go outside.
I go outside. I just went in the woods, and like you said, you just make something up and you just explore.
Okay.
So I think that's what drives passion, is boredom, maybe.
Okay, well, this is an off-the-record fun question. I asked this to Megan, the other park ranger. All right, so you're in West Virginia. Do you think there are mountain lions in Virginia, and do you think there are mountain lions in West Virginia? What's your thoughts? Because I know this is a big controversy.
It is a big controversy, and my official statement will be that there are there's no records of within recent history of mountain lions being in Virginia or West Virginia. No official records, anyway. I know there's a lot of personal accounts, but I personally have not seen one, and I have not seen a record within recent history of one being in West Virginia or Virginia. So that's where I stand.
Okay. When I was out in Green Bank, I think I was.
Yeah.
When I was out there, I was like, there's no way. There's got to be something out here. It's too much land.
There's a lot of
It's too much
nothing
land.
out
A lot
there.
of nothing.
Yeah.
So we definitely know we got black bears,
Mm-hmm.
red foxes. What else? A lot of what would you say is the sort of native species right here?
Oh gosh, how long do we
Yeah.
have? No, you're hitting the big ones, right? Black bear,
Possum.
and people are just so excited when they see a black bear too.
Yeah.
And we hope they're always positive encounters. There are some negative encounters, but it's just an awe-inspiring moment when you see a black bear. But there are red fox, there are turkey, white-tailed deer. So many bird species, whether it's songbirds or bald eagles or red-tailed hawks.
Mm-hmm.
Great blue herons on the water, since Seven Bends is right here on the water, and then the water brings in other wildlife sightings, because you can look into the water and you can see a smallmouth bass.
Yeah.
You can see one of the sunfish. So yeah, groundhogs. There was one behind you.
I saw one
Yep.
coming in. Yeah, definitely would you say we have, like, because I know I read recently that the bald eagles have rebounded. Like, do you think we're doing well in terms of preservation? Or, I mean, you could always be doing better probably with something.
Yeah.
But, in general, like, what's the trend you think?
In general, and this is just my opinion, because I'm not a raptor expert. I don't study bald eagles, but I think we're doing an amazing job.
Okay.
And this is from encounters with some of those people who study raptors or bald eagles and do that for a living. Because we've had a few bald eagles that we've released here on the park, and so I've had the chance to speak with them, and not that long ago they would band and they would put GPS trackers on bald eagles. That way we could better understand them and help that population. They're not even doing that anymore. They're the bald eagles are doing so well now that they're not even concerned with banding or tracking them.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I think of when I think of environmentalism. I think I said before that it's become like almost legalistic and almost too daunting to think about being environmentally friendly. But for me, it's like I said, trying to find the harmony. Even what I'm trying to do right now is just trying to figure out how I can use more things around me. We have opportunities to do a lot more things concerning just planning things around the property that we have now, and I can't wait to do that. It always seems though that when you want to do something, you kind of got to learn more about something. So that's been another cool thing for me as well, is like growing my green thumb, but doing it at a place because I want to do these things, and that to me is the harmony, is not feeling like there's like an impending doom per se, but the want and the love for all of this. And when you love something, you want to take care of it. So that's my thoughts. Wrapping it up, like what would be your thoughts and your pitch for being environmentally well, and what would you just tell people, encourage people who might live here or might live somewhere and they haven't been outside in a long time? Like, what are you telling them?
All right, and we were talking about this before, and we've made inferences during this talk about what environmental wellness is, and what I said before was a lot of people feel like environmental wellness means that you have to be living off the grid and making sure that your carbon footprint is 100% erased, but that doesn't have to be the case, right? Everyone's journey or perspective is different on environmental wellness, and if you're just making that conscious effort to take care of the environment in whatever way that you can, right? If you're recycling, if you're trying to erase your carbon footprint even a little, if you're giving back to, say, a state park and you're volunteering at a park, that's environmental wellness. And tying that back in is, if you take care of the environment takes care of you. Environmental wellness extends beyond taking care of the environment, because your wellness will benefit from you taking care of the environment.
All
Hey,
right.
I appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much.
Been a pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.